Hey guys, it's Yannick. Welcome back to Gasoline Culture. So today we have something a little bit unusual. It's a car that you never really see out on the road, and that for a couple of good reasons. Welcome to the Aston Martin Rapide S. It's a limousine that kind of doesn't have space in the back, and now I'm going to try and get out of it. Getting in was really hard. There we go. Whew. Let's go.
So special.
Alright guys, so welcome to the interior of the Aston Martin Rapide S. Now as you just saw, this car is utterly stunning from the outside. I really think that Aston Martins, they've always been one of the best looking designs out there in the automotive world, and this one is no exception. I mean, the big front grille makes it look like a manta ray that's coming down the street, and basically just the lines, those sleek classic Aston Martin lines that just make it look like an arrow coming down the road. I think it's really one of the most beautiful cars out there, and the added wheelbase that you have on this car, I think it makes the car look even better than, for example, a DB9. For some reason, it stretches those long lines even more and just makes for a really interesting exterior. I've always been a fan of the lines on an Aston Martin, and especially the more classic ones. I'm not a big fan personally of the GT8 and things like that. I think the rear wing is just a little bit too much, and the splitters in the front are very exaggerated. That's just my personal opinion. I mean, they're still great cars, but I just think I prefer this kind of look to an Aston Martin just because it oozes elegance and it's just so stylish. It's the second you see someone driving an Aston Martin, you just know, oh, that guy is a man of, or a woman for that matter, of class, of elegance, of taste. And that's really what this car represents, and the exterior just really shows that off so well. I also think that this specific car is actually in a perfect color combination. I mean, the dark blue with the cream leather inside, as well as, the dark blue stitching throughout the interior is absolutely gorgeous. And I think it really suits this kind of car. It's elegant, but at the same time, it keeps its sportiness. Alright, so let me give you a couple of figures on this car. The car is 558 PS and 620 Newton meters of torque. Now, this is not the latest version, which has the 8-speed ZF gearbox. Unfortunately, it's still got the really sluggish automatic, and that's probably the biggest letdown on this car. But, just first impressions when you get in are that it's relatively comfortable. I mean, people always complain about this car being uncomfortable when you compare it to an S-Class. I mean, that's not really a fair comparison, considering the fact that an S-Class is a full-size limousine, whilst this is more of a, sport car, saloon hybrid. I mean, it should be compared to things like a Panamera or maybe an Audi RS7. And those cars are kind of cramped on the interior as well. And to be fair, I mean, the seat is fantastic in here. And just being in this sort of tight cockpit, with the angled windshield in the front, it just makes you feel very cozy, and it makes you feel very at home. And it's not uncomfortable by any means. The ride is relatively supple. Of course, it is stiff because it does have that sporty edge to it, and it's supposed to. It's not supposed to be a wallowy old thing, that just handles like a boat. So I really think that dynamically, whilst the transmission may not be the best, although they have upgraded that on the brand new ones, you know, it's still, it's very poised. It's very, I mean, it's definitely one of those cars where you feel the sportiness coming through, and you know that there is something to work with. I mean, it's got a 5.9 liter naturally aspirated V12, which just, I mean, it's an old thing, but god damn it, I mean, old but gold. When you put your foot into it and the V12 comes to life, unbelievable. The way it pulls and just the way the whole like power gets delivered, it's so effortless. There's just something about V12s that is so special that no other engine, no matter how strong, how powerful they are, they don't give you this sort of smooth power delivery. It basically feels like a train that's just gliding along, but just the acceleration, like, it's so seamless. It's unbelievable. And it's actually relatively quiet when the valves on the exhaust don't open up. It's really one of the cars where you can comfortably cruise cross country. And you know, if you want that sportiness, just put it in sport, the valves open, and you get an amazing sound. Alright, so let's quickly talk about this interior. Now, I mean, it's a luxury car, so obviously you have high expectations, but I mean, if I'm honest, it's not that great. I mean, the materials that are used are fantastic. The leather is great. It's gorgeous. It's fantastic quality, and it's everywhere. Literally everywhere you look, you'll find leather or Alcantara. It's really, really nice, especially this combination between dark blue and beige with the dark blue stitching is great. But I mean, you know, in terms of tech, this is miserable. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a 2015-16 car, and I think the navigation system is out of a mid-2000s Volvo or something. It's a joke. Now, I never really use in-car navigation systems anyway, but just knowing that this like 4-centimeter fat screen is gonna swivel out, and like it basically looks like a Nintendo DS in terms of screen quality. It's a complete joke. And a lot of these buttons, they just don't feel that great, to be honest. The air vents are literally out of a Ford Mondeo, which I think is a bit of a joke when you consider the price of this car. All right, so let's talk about this car dynamically. Let me put it into manual and see what happens. Oh man, the sound is there, but oh, so are the slow shifts. Downshift. Oh god, you can really tell that the car is not appreciating this kind of driving. The transmission is the biggest letdown on this car. I mean, obviously the naturally aspirated V12 is absolutely awesome. It's one of my favorite engines. I mean, 5.9 liters of displacement, and just get a hold of this sound. Yeah, I mean, it sounds awesome, that's for sure, like every other Aston does. But really, I mean, the transmission is a joke. It's a joke. The second you put it into manual, I mean, the downshifts are just really slow, and so are the upshifts. You can really tell that this car is begging you to leave it and drive, which is actually what I'm going to do right now, because yeah, it's not really all that fun to shift around. One thing I do have to give Aston Martin, though, is that they place the paddles on the steering column and not on the steering wheel. That's a really important thing for me. It's the only way to do it. Now, in terms of suspension, I mean, the car is kept very, very sporty, and its base sort of setting is not harsh, but I'd say it's just a little bit sportier than what you would have expected from an Aston Martin. You can feel a lot of you know, bumps and cracks in the road, and the sport setting really just, I don't know, it feels even stiffer, so I'm not even going to touch that. But other than that, the car feels planted, and when you put it through corners at relatively high speed, you can really tell that the weight distribution is on point, and that the longer wheelbase is actually really helping the car in terms of handling. When comparing it to a DB9, I have to say I feel a lot more comfortable driving this than in the shorter wheel-based car, and it feels planted for sure. I mean, props to Aston Martin on that. It doesn't feel as you know, I mean, you expect that this thing's gonna feel like a Range Rover or something, but it really does have that sporty edge, which I think is great. I mean, of course, a Porsche Panamera is going to murder it in a straight line as well as in corners, but in terms of suspension, I think they did a good job, and it's definitely comfortable enough to drive, you know, in long distances, driving through Europe. It's definitely a great Grand Tourer. Now, the brakes, they are not carbon ceramics, they're steel. The feedback is decent, but on a car that weighs 2 tons, I think the car could deal with, you know, bigger brakes, as you do start feeling a bit of fade when you're driving relatively fast. The steering is great. It's actually quite direct. It's not as discommunicated as I would have expected it to be, because you do kind of get in this car and you think that it's going to be just a comfortable limousine or a cruiser, but the sporty edge, really, you can really feel it through the steering, through the suspension, which is really cool. I mean, it's definitely a different approach, but it works. In my opinion, it really does. Now, just, you know, the front end is planted. Of course, it's not, you know, it does sway around a little bit, but you really know what the front axle is doing. And I mean, we're not going to demonstrate it today, but you can actually, if you hit throttle mid-corner, you can whip the back of this car out, and it will actually, you know, give you a little drift here and there, and it does so in a very controlled manner, surprisingly so. So as I said, this car you never really see out on the road, and I really think that it's because this car doesn't make sense at all on paper. I mean, it's very, very expensive, and if you look at the performance figures, the Panamera just pretty much does everything a lot better for less money, and so does an RS7. I mean, there's no comparison there. But, you know, for me, it's just the way this car makes you feel. It's that typical sort of Aston Martin thing that's going on. And I hate to say it, and it's so cliche, but when you drive this thing, you feel like James Bond. It's just, you know that whoever's sitting in this car is a man or a woman with taste, and like who likes elegance and who likes the finer things in life. It's just so much more special than any of its competitors. While it may not make sense to buy it, I mean, I still support it because I think it's a great car, and it just promotes the being different thing, okay? So this is not like, you know, anyone else. You're gonna be the guy who wants to have a comfortable, special car and not just be like any other person who's buying an expensive limousine. Alright guys, so that was a little Aston Martin Rapide S review. I hope you liked it as much as we did. I mean, I absolutely love this car. I think it's fantastic. It's just something very different and something very special, and it makes its competitors look kind of boring, if I'm honest. Let us know what you think about this car in the comment box below, and remember to give us a thumbs up if you liked the video, and please subscribe to our channel. There's a lot more coming. See you soon, guys.